one of the intentions I think that we've set for the podcast is this calendar year to talk more about sex. It's not that we haven't in other episodes, it just hasn't always been as much of the focus. And that's something I think that merits more conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy New Year. Queer relationships, queer joy.
Welcome back.
This is absolutely one of my favorite days, times of the year. I love the new year. I like the feeling of a fresh start, even though, there's many things continuing from last year, but
Sure,
I
sure.
love New Year's.
Clean slate, get to start over. Have some new
Yes.
intentions like we talked about last time.
I know, I'm so curious because we were talking about how common it was to have breakups around this time,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering what listeners are experiencing, if they have new loves or if they have breakups. What is
Mhm,
going on now that it is the new year? How are
mhm.
relationships doing?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's already new NRE blossoming. Maybe some of you are just dealing with grief and moving through, but you've made it through the Hallmark holidays, I guess.
Did anyone have a first kiss over on New Year's Eve?
It's been a long time. I'm realizing as you say that, I don't know the last time I was like, I don't know the last time I did anything on New Year's Eve.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I sometimes I spend New Year's with my kids, and sometimes I spend it with a partner and kids, and sometimes I just spend it with a partner, so it depends. Um, yeah, and to be real, we're recording this before New Year's, so maybe next episode, I can say whether I had a kiss this past New Year's,
Right.
New Year's Eve of 2022, we will see.
Yeah, to be determined.
But yeah, write us in. Listeners, did you have a New Year's Eve kiss? Do you have some NRE going on? Let's hear about those stories, those New Year's new connections.
I like that. New year, new connection.
So, brief introductions and we'll talk about updates. I will start. Keely C. Helmick, licensed professional counselor. I am the owner of Connective Therapy Collective. I'm a white, non-binary, queer femme. I have a new word. It's not a new word, but a new labeling for myself. I've got quickly have to look it up real quick. Ambiamorous. So, ambiamorous, people who deliberate and ethical in their engagement with non-monogamy, polyamory, and monogamy. Love it. So, kind of the gray, when we talk about different gray spaces or gray areas, when we're talking about sex, which will be our topic of the day today, going into sex, this idea, I can speak for myself that I do live in the gray. I still think in non-monogamous poly ways, but
Mhm.
I definitely throughout life, ever since honestly, ever since I was in my early 20s, before there was even some of the vocabulary around, I've always gone from being monogamous, being non-monogamous, being polyamorous, and I like the specificity of talking about being deliberate,
Yeah.
ethical piece, and I think what it is when I think back to times when I am monogamous, it is very intentional, and I have my reasons, and I talk to the person that I'm dating, who the person I'm in a relationship with, and we have very specific, deliberate, intentional reasons why I choose monogamy at that point in my life.
That's a great term. I really like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Melissa, introductions.
I'm Melissa DeSegurant. I'm licensed as a marriage and family therapist and professional counselor. Work at Connective Therapy Collective in Portland, Oregon. I'm white. I'm bisexual. I'm able bodied and polyamorous. I'm gender fluid. I use she and they pronouns. I'm demisexual. I've always been demisexual. I think some of the listeners know that, but I don't always say it in the title, and I am today. I'm claiming it.
Well,
Important.
yes. Well, and speaking after updates, talking about some of the vocabulary and talking about sex in general and getting into the conversations around that.
Yeah.
So, updates, Melissa, do you have anything you want to update listeners on? What's going on?
I'm doing great. All my partnerships are doing really well. At this point, I'm very content. I am polysaturated, I would say. I don't have the capacity for additional romantic or sexual relationships right now. I had a really fun, spontaneous video date with my partner who doesn't live locally. And that was just, it wasn't planned, which is, it's tough because there's quite a time difference. And just caught me, like, at the perfect moment, and it was so wonderful, and I think the thing I appreciated the most was both of us commented on this, but it's just like no time had passed, like, we're just in our connection to each other, very capable of going a couple weeks at this point without seeing one another, and then we get on FaceTime, and it's like, I can feel what it was like to be in his presence, like, I can still I'm like, "Yeah, I have not forgotten." Yeah, it's still there, so that's really awesome, and then having fun, with my local partner as well, so things are going really well. I will say we'll talk about this maybe with our theme today, but, like, things are really spicy. That's now my favorite word since we said it in different context a couple episodes ago. There's a lot of heat and exploration of new things, and I am real pumped about what this year has in store for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. I love the
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah.
What are my updates? I don't even know what I wanna talk about. I always I mean, I will say I've been watching, just like 3/4 of the queer population have been watching L Word, Generation
Yeah,
X.
yeah. I'm behind. I need to catch up. There's a new season that just got released,
Well,
is that
there's a
right?
season 3, yeah, but
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not they're releasing the episodes weekly.
Yeah. That's why I haven't watched yet. I wait till I can binge them all.
But wait, I wanna be able to talk about it. And yeah, it's interesting. I will say my relationship dynamic at this point, for lack of another name, Main and I have continued hanging out, and there has definitely been a lot of conversations around relationship dynamics and specific non-monogamous, polyamorous titles, labels, styles, like really exploring the style. And I'm becoming more and more clear what it is that I actually want. And I think at this point, obviously it can change. Everything's fluid. We're all fluid in gender, sexuality, relationship styles. Maybe that's the theme of today. It's just fluidity.
Yay, I like that theme.
I was recognizing this where I am right now, wanting more depth.
Mhm,
And so within that, that doesn't mean I need to be monogamous. But what I recognize is there's either again, talking about this intentionality,
mhm,
recognizing if I'm going to be in a polyamorous dynamic, I want it to be more kitchen table.
mhm. Sure,
And then if I'm monogamous, then I define monogamous, but really monogamish. I don't see myself being truly monogamous in the sense
sure.
that I really even if I'm not sexual with somebody else, the ability to have conversations about attractions to other people, about
Mhm,
having types of connections that in a monogamous relationship is often deemed like emotional affairs or these ideas that the quality of a relationship that specific type of depth and that emotional connection can only happen within the monogamous partner that you're sexually monogamous with, and that
right.
doesn't jive with me, so when I think about monogamy, I think about if I'm in a monogamous relationship, it's still monogamish,
Mhm, mhm.
and so, yeah, exploring kitchen table and what that means, and kitchen table meaning to me isn't about all the partners necessarily even hanging out a lot, but that there's this conversation and honesty and inclusion.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think the thing that I've been really struggling with and I've been able to articulate more is that in the non-monogamous dating that I've been participating in, the person, especially main, who we've been dating for over a year now,
Mhm.
crazy, that when I want more time with them, and I want
Yeah,
not just more time with them, but I want to feel like I'm included in these conversations that
mhm.
affect my schedule,
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
that
Yeah.
affect the amount of time that I get to hang out with them, and
Mhm.
so really exploring that and, like, kitchen table poly means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Totally does. It totally does, and there's so many things that can impact it. I'm even thinking about, like, visibility and, like, outness, and I've said this before, but, like, I don't even know if I could call my dynamics, like, totally kitchen table at this point, at least yeah, I mean, I orient towards kitchen table, and my partners are all oriented the same way, but my metamors aren't.
Yeah, okay.
So, that changes things, and then when people are not out as poly, I mean, that means a lot of all of my relationships currently are invisible, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, that can impact, like, do you call it kitchen table when it's an invisible I don't know, you know? But it we all define it differently.
Yeah. And I'll say, I mean, for me, the biggest thing as far as outness is actually about my kids, and my
Mhm,
kids know that I'm non-monogamous
mhm.
currently. And my 14-year-old, one of those typical teenage car ride conversations, she's like, "Mom, do you like being poly?" Wow, I get to actually be asked that, which I will say I'm
Yeah.
also wearing the shirt, "The future is queer." It should be "The future is queer and non-monogamous."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was really surprised, not surprised that my child is very direct,
Mhm,
but the quality of the conversation we were able to have about relationships and being able to talk about what non-monogamy and polyamory looks like in real life and in connection with
mhm.
many people. And I mean, if y'all are wondering what my answer was, I said, I enjoy it at times and it takes a lot of work and a lot of communication.
Word.
Word
Well
my
said.
blanket, yeah, my blanket statement to her.
And monogamy does too, so let's put
Yeah,
that out there as well, you know?
yeah, and just, she's exploring, and I mean, for me, when I think about her being a teenager and the idea of her exploring relationship dynamics, I'm like, "Yeah, date more than one person. Yes." And that
Mhm,
doesn't mean I'm not trying to make her be one way or the other. I mean, that I know that could come across that way. It's more about the concept, like we've talked about in other episodes, is dating more than one person or being open to dating so that's not restrictive and giving yourself a chance to figure out what you want. Even if you're monogamous and that's your goal is to be monogamous, great. But still give yourself an opportunity to slow down and really get to know someone and not be instantaneously tied down or connected to one person in that specific way.
sure. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Ring ring, ring ring. You've reached the voicemail of Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. Please leave a message after the beep. Beep. Hey, it's Cardinal, your behind the scenes buddy. Just calling to say our new QRQJ voicemail line is up and ready for you to leave a message. Calling 503-660-4409 will send you straight to voicemail where you can leave your anonymous relationship thoughts, questions, concerns, and queer joy of the week. Do you have something to get off your chest? Try it. Give us a call. 503-660-4409. The number is also in the episode description. All right, back to the show.
So yeah, my 14-year-old, if other people are also curious, her and I have many sex talks. So,
Very open communication.
yes, she has lots of questions.
But that feels important, and I know kind of jumping into talking more about sex today, one of the intentions I think that we've set for the podcast is this calendar year to talk more about sex. It's not that we haven't in other episodes, it just hasn't always been as much of the focus, and that's something I think that merits more conversation. And I say that based on what you just shared, Keely, because so many of my clients that I talk to were not exposed to any conversations about sex growing up. And if they did, I mean, even think like it's kind of crap that I mean, it's not kind of, it's very much crap that we call it sex education
Oh my gosh.
when I got no education on how to have sex, especially not queer
No,
sex. No one taught me that.
no.
I was basically told, like, if you have, a penis go into you, you could get an STD and die, or you'll get pregnant. So don't do it.
And
Like
ruin
that
your life. Get pregnant and your life is ruined.
yeah, exactly, because that would be a terrible thing. So it just like If that is the extent of your sexual education, welcome to a broader conversation about sex.
Yeah, totally. And I think this ties back into one of we just had that recent interview with Taylor and talking about the idea of queering sex
Mhm,
and queering sex therapy and what does that mean? And I just thought when you said this is not specific about STI and like sexual health, but I do want to put this out there because I think it is so important to talk about things, and something I just learned, I didn't realize that HPV can be transmitted genital to genital and mouth to genital.
mhm.
And so this is my doctors have never told me this. It was always how I understood it was HPV was mainly penis vagina
Mhm.
intercourse.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "What?" So, all you folks with vulvas and women having sex with other women and any dynamic within that, if you have somehow been told or have the idea that you are safe from HPV because you are not having penetrative sex with a penis, talk to your doctor.
Myth busting.
Yes, and this day, or I guess a week ago at 42, my eyes were just opened.
Well, and the thing too is like, yes, we want to practice healthy, safe sex, and we want to take the stigma away from STIs and STDs. Like, they're not always the end of the world, and there's so much shame. And I think that's the biggest agenda I have around sex is like getting rid of the shame, whether that's shame over diseases, whether that is shame over the kinds of sex we want to have, whether that's shame over kink. Like, shame in my book really doesn't have a place. I mean, I don't know if it has a place anywhere other than in some like really wonderful expressive artwork to release it, but it causes a lot of damage. And especially when we're talking about shame about something that is inherent to our own physical expression, sex is a normal, natural thing. We can get rid of the shame.
Yeah, and the shame even be like, the shame around having sex with other people, there's so much shame innately in masturbation and
Hmm.
self, talking about sex.
Yeah.
And something that I've been hearing more and more, and this is kind of gives some foreshadowing to an interview we'll have in a couple weeks. I won't name drop yet, but we will be having an interview with somebody who specifically does trainings and works around trans sex that people may already
Ring some bells.
yeah, is how that shame piece, how that keeps or that influences people using substances, using drug and alcohol to be able to have sex.
Hmm. Hmm. Are you meaning like when people are having a shame feeling come up and needing to calm that, and so using a substance to try and make that feeling go away?
Yeah, well, and before having sex, feeling shame about how they want to engage sexually
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
somebody, and
Yeah.
so and this crosses over, this isn't just about queer sex, this is about cis hetero folks too, is there's so much shame in expressing ourselves in ways sexually and with our bodies with other people.
Yeah.
And that really ties into this idea of roles that have been constructed about how we're supposed to be in sex or how we're supposed to act in sex.
Right.
And so that's where it really crosses when we're saying queering sex, that includes everybody, no matter what your gender or sexuality label or title is.
Mhm. Yeah, it's exactly what you just said, Keely, because if we can get out of this script that this is the way it's supposed to be and this is what it's supposed to look like, then we can explore and be super creative without worrying about what's gonna happen. And, like, also, like, journal maybe or at least somehow process what are the fears and concerns coming up when you think about queering up sex? When you think about going outside of whatever routine you have created that is a little tired and might need, a pick me up. Because so often it's like, I'm gonna embarrass myself. I'll look dumb. It's gonna be awkward. I've literally told somebody in the last couple weeks, like, great, call your partner, go plan some awkward sex. It has to be awkward. You just have to make sure that every moment is as awkward as possible. Get it out of your system, do that together, laugh, and then keep playing. Like, we have to sort of get away from this idea that it's supposed to be perfect or it's supposed to be anything. The more we can lean into the awkwardness, the embarrassment, the silliness, the more chance to connect with the people we're having sex with.
Oh, completely. And there's so many tie-ins to labels and, like, we expect a person who presents more masks to be a certain way. These conversations are happening continually. Someone who presents more femme, people in cis hetero dynamics. There are these ideas of how someone is supposed to interact sexually, and
Right.
that pressure then leads to lots of different things. I mean, I can speak what's been interesting in the past, I guess, 5 months now, 4 or 5 months since I've been dealing with my back injury,
Mhm.
is that I've really had to change how I engage sexually.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I usually talk anyway, I'm sure no one's surprised how much having a podcast and talking. Yes, I talk during sex. And even so, I find myself having certain labels of how I see myself as a sexual person, and
Mhm.
then having to shift that when, because of my back. And some of the things that come up is like, and sweet partner, they'll be like, "Okay, take a break." And I'm like, "But I'm not ready to stop." They're like, "I know you're not. And I'm gonna tell you, you're supposed to take a break." And so
Yeah.
normalizing that, really normalizing using a lot of different props and not just when we say props, sometimes talking about sex, you think, "Ooh, like new toys." No, I'm talking about like pillows and positions
Mhm.
to lessen the chance of my back hurting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is it
Absolutely. Supports. If you have the finances, there's some really fun furniture that I have seen on what is it on Netflix, the How to Build a Sex Room?
Oh, yeah.
That I
Well,
want that whatever that little chaise lounge thing, like, that has my name written all over it. It's like
Well, and there's tools. There's a type of chair that it's almost like a mini swing, but it's not an actual swing. A swing, you can do this too, but having this chair that reminds me of what a recliner does. And so instead of a person using their muscles to move back and forth,
Mhm,
a chair does it. And
mhm,
so it
mhm.
helps lessen the need or another person can help control that. So you're
Yeah.
just not having to you can engage in certain ways, but not have to strain yourself as much.
Mhm, mhm.
There's so many different things out there. So, I mean, I will say, and I'm not sure if shame is what I feel, but I do definitely recognize that wanna live up to a certain idea I have of myself,
Mhm.
and that reality is whether it's a one night stand or someone I'm in a relationship with, if the person's gonna be engaging with me sexually,
Mhm.
they need to be taking this into consideration.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm glad too that you named it. It may not be shame that comes up for you because I know I harp on that, and I think that's both my own upbringing and my clients, like, very highly religious backgrounds. So, yeah, enter shame. And that's not the only experience, as you're saying, that people are gonna have. There are other things that can come up with sex.
I think normalizing that idea that how do we talk about sex with people that we're engaging sexually with, having
Mhm.
that ongoing communication, and just like it's all gonna be different.
And it takes practice. I wanna say that because I was not a person who could talk during sex or even about sex, like, ever. It's pretty like, I've said this recently, it's pretty surprising that I'm on this podcast now. If you knew me, like, 3 years ago, it's like, "What?" I really struggled, and specifically studying sex therapy and then putting myself in this field, I mean, I have to talk about it all the time, and that's really helped me. So there is this piece of it's not gonna be comfortable the first time, and you're just gonna have to do it. You're just gonna have to talk, and you're gonna have to start flexing those communication muscles. And maybe it doesn't feel comfortable right away with a sexual partner. But again, find your friends, listen to podcasts like this one, listen to other podcasts that talk about sex. Get yourself immersed in the language so it just becomes normal. It's not a big deal anymore. Because the
Yeah.
really great thing is when you start talking, sometimes recently I've been like, offhandedly, like, oh, yeah, this is a kink of mine. And then, like, 20 minutes later, it's fucking happening. Like, you can
Yes.
explore more things if people know what is going on in your mind and your body.
Well, and I find that, talking about sex or texting about sex can definitely be foreplay.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I encourage couples, sometimes, especially when you're looking at someone that's more responsive sexual desire versus spontaneous, like,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you have to engage physically for a certain amount of time before certain things happen, but that can mean a way to start engaging your brain in sex and getting that going as a responsive person can be talking about it throughout the day or texting about it.
Yeah.
Having that as a regular part of your interactions with your sexual partners can really increase that as a responsive
Totally.
person.
Totally. You know, that's so true, and I'm thinking now as we're talking about this about, like, our demisexual folks like myself and even asexual folks, that's a conversation that may even merit a different episode. But I bring that up because I know that sometimes I can have someone engage me in a conversation about sex where I'm not in a sexual place. I'm like cooking dinner and I get a text message. And as a demi person, and this may not be every demi person's experience, but I can often go right to, like, panic of, I don't feel sexy right now, and I don't want to have a conversation about sex, and what does that mean about me? Am I not sexual? Am I not doing it right? Do I just force myself because this podcast said we should talk about it? Like, and so, no, don't force yourself. Let's follow our instincts and intuition. That's okay. There are ways to communicate that, There are ways to communicate, "I'm really interested in discussing this more, now's not a great time." You know?
Yes.
I identify as demi. Here's what this means, you know?
Yeah, and for the person sending the text and for these conversations, I think it does warrant the mention of how of getting consent from the person before engaging in these conversations. I
Sure. Yeah.
definitely think, yeah, some people I'm like, "Sweet, I love getting random sexting comments throughout the day," but
Yeah.
not everyone is like that and
Maybe.
checking in. But even me and I don't identify as demi, and there yeah, definitely there are times where I'll be like, "Ah,
Yeah. Like,
it's just
yikes.
sexy," but I
Yeah.
wasn't prepared for it, and my
Yeah.
mind is in a very different place right now.
Totally.
So
This is again something to make an agreement, before you necessarily do this. But one thing I have enjoyed is, especially for like partners that I don't get to see regularly, I can't always guarantee I'm going to be in the mood to sex when they're in the mood to like, I can't guarantee that, right? But I also want to maintain the sexual connection. So there's things where like we've agreed on one specific emoji that like, when something is happening for me, I send that emoji just like to let you know. There's no
yes.
expectation attached, right? Our agreement is not like, now you're going to engage me. It's just like, hey, I'm just going to do this to let you know. And that's a way that I can still participate in sexually engaging with somebody over text as a demi person who's not always going to be in the mood for that kind of a conversation.
So instead of a code word, it's a code emoji.
It's a code emoji.
Love
And
it.
again, like it's very specific what that's linked to, and my partner knows what that means. And it's like a special little insight thing that we have.
Yeah. And so going back to this idea of queering sex, and we were talking about queering sex and shame, and I think that these conversations, we've gone over and talked about the idea of having different vocabulary and like these technical pieces of how to be supportive of your partner or supportive of yourself and engaging in conversations with your partner. I think the piece about really, if we get to basics when talking about what queering sex is the idea that there's not one specific way to use different body parts.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's not one specific way to use objects.
Hmm.
And to be clear, disclaimer about objects, be very clear, there are certain objects that are meant to and not meant to be in different holes in your body. So we do
Right.
want to clarify that.
Safety first.
Yes, check with the manufacturer. But this
Yeah.
idea, like the joke, and I think I've said it in an episode before, but like the joke of, like, a lesbian sending a picture of their hand. Is that the same as a gay?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at my perfectly manicured fingernails.
Um, yeah, sorry, I just, like, had this random thought of there's a scene in one of the L Word episodes with, like, Shane and another person.
Of course it's with Shane.
Oh, I know. It's like the 2 Shane, who's, like, more mask lesbian and or mask of center, and then one of the non-binary folks. Oh, what is their name? Anyway, and they're, like, working on this, like, hardware project together. I'm like, "Is this, like, lesbian queer porn?" Like, we're just doing this whole thing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, the writer did this so on purpose." Anyway, that was, like, a total rant. Side note, people have been watching L Word will probably know what I'm talking about. But yeah, thinking about if we take labels off of things and if we didn't know how we were supposed to use a certain body part or
Mhm.
how sensations were supposed to be done. And some people do have specific genders. I'm not saying to not gender people appropriately, but that to take the gender out of acts.
Right.
Specific acts, and
Yeah.
then finding vocabulary or practicing ways of talking about what sensations feel good and how you label your body parts and
Mhm.
talking about that.
Yeah.
And and I will say, interesting conversation with one of the people I'm dating. We realized one of the things about being non-monogamous is, like, you have to remember what type of sex certain people like.
Different people have different turn-ons and avoids.
Yes. And I will say a recent episode, Ashley Gavin made some comment about like, "Oh, well, women." I think she differentiated and said women and didn't even say like vulva owners, but definitely like said something about how they just want it slow or whatever, and I was like,
Oh, I heard that and was like,
"Me?
sometimes.
Yeah. Me?
Not always."
Nope, nope." But yes. But yeah, when you're with different partners is you have to remember like, "Oh, does this person like penetration or not? Does this
Right.
person" I think one of the most common ones is like, how does this person like their chest touched, or do they like their chest touched?
Yeah.
Certain assumptions. Another assumption talking about Ashley Gavin again, whatever, is that she was talking about how oftentimes people misgender her
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just say she's non-binary, or
Yeah.
like this denial of like people can present in all different ways and that we're not here to tell people what their gender is.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
going back to this idea of like having like assumptions about a person who's non-binary, or assumptions about a person who's trans, or assumptions about a person who's cis.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, and truly, it can be assumptions about anybody. It can be assumptions that people of the same gender, that their bodies respond in the same way. And I'm
Yes.
laughing because I'm like, isn't that one of the assumptions that people like try to anyway, that's a different conversation. But people's bodies work differently.
Yes.
Some people have sensitivity in some areas that are not sensitive for other people. It's going to be completely different. The other thing too that I mean, I think you find this in monogamy if you date more than one person over the course of your life. How we show up in sex is different. How I want one of my partners to touch me is quite different than how I want a different partner to touch me. It is not the same. And I really got in my head about that when I was monogamous, thinking, and I've heard this from clients, right? Of like, if your desire starts to go down, it's like, well, I ruined it, I lost it, it's gone. And I'm like, you probably just don't really want that same sex you're having anymore. You probably want something different. But then I've been surprised in non-monogamy where like I went through that and then found a new partner who was doing all those same original things to me. And now all of a sudden it's exciting again. Well, yeah, NRE, it's a different person. So yeah, it just don't make any assumptions about how your body is going to want things, how their body's every single time is a new experience.
And it's gonna change, and for folks that menstruate, it can change depending on their cycle.
Mhm.
We can change it, hormones can change it. If you go on T or if you go on E, I've heard people talk about one person was being interviewed and was talking about when they started E, the type of orgasm they had
Mhm.
changed, like, what the orgasm felt like in their body completely
Yep.
changed, the way they wanted
Yep.
to be touched. So there's
Yeah.
all these different things that can influence depending on the time.
Totally. And these things can change in the moment, like
Yeah.
while you are having sex, which is why the communication becomes so crucial so that you can alert people like, "Ooh, I don't that's not working anymore. I'm like looking for something different."
There's certain parts of my body that I really enjoy biting and different intensity biting, and there's certain areas where I'm like, "Oh, nope, nope," in the
Mhm.
moment. And it's
Yeah,
not to mean I don't wanna have bites anywhere, but it means, like,
totally.
there's that certain spot that right that second, I was like, "Nope, not digging it. Let's
Yeah,
move on."
totally, and there could be, like, overstimulation where it's like, "And we're done with that today." Like, that's all we're doing with that, you know? And that's okay. We get to be really fluid with that.
Yeah, and things just change, and I think what you just said a couple minutes ago around the idea of assumptions and getting rid of assumptions and having this curiosity, beginner's mind idea when it comes to sex, and having a beginner's mind every time you approach sex, whether it's with the same partner, or with a different partner. Curiosity, exploring, "Ooh, what would this feel like? What would this feel like?" Yeah, never assuming that the person that you're engaging with is gonna want to have the same kind of interaction that happened even 2 hours ago.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think the takeaway for this when we're talking about sex specifically, but especially kind of intro queering sex 101 is not making assumptions, having exploring ourselves. I mean, we always say this. I don't think we just said this, but like exploring ourselves to see what we like with our bodies and then
Mhm.
communicating that,
Yeah.
communicating during sex. But yeah, taking the broad idea of not having assumptions, how body parts are used, how we wanna be touched, how someone else wants to be touched, how we wanna
Mhm.
be touched at any point of our interactions and any point of our relationship, days, weeks, months, years, changes.
It changes, go with it.
Ask questions, be curious. So non are we talking oh, I'm going into mindfulness. It just, like, comes out of me. I can't help it because I was like, non-judgmental, curiosity.
Beginner's mind, it's all of those
Right.
principles.
Yes.
It really is, it really is. They can be applied to sex. Actually, if we are mindful while during sex, arguably, it's going to be more enjoyable than if we
Yeah.
are dissociated and trying to experience sex. Not a helpful place to be.
Well, and I think we're gonna have to, because then my mind I'm not gonna go back into that topic, but I do think maybe we should have another episode where we talk more about the idea of drug sex linked behavior.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Yeah.
do think there's this piece, and this comes in with gender too. I'm hearing so much how people disassociate during sex,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that drug and alcohol use is like a maladaptive it's a coping skill,
Right. Yeah.
and so that's to we'll have that conversation another day, but I
Totally. This is a yeah, there's a longer conversation that what I'll bookmark that, like, is a thought for me to think about before we have that conversation is even getting specific about when we use the word dissociation, what does that mean?
yes.
Because there's a way in which I mean it clinically that I'm, like, not wanting to give anything a good or a bad, it's just something that we do. Because usually when we dissociate, it's for a protective reason. There can be problematic dissociation with sex that can create more harm that I feel like is different than I'm gonna give it this concept from theater because this is the best way that I've been able to put it in my brain, but, like, suspension of disbelief. And loosely meaning in, like, theater, it's like you go see a show and, like, yeah, it's a cardboard set, but we're gonna believe that it's a real street, right? Like, we're suspending our the part of our mind that's like, "Oh, that" and I think at least in the gender experiences I've heard from some of my clients and my own, there are times where overly identifying, for example, for me being somebody who is assigned female at birth, overly identifying as female in sex can sometimes be really triggering for me. Even though I don't have a ton of, like, disconnect from my body, that can still happen in sex. So, there are things I can do to suspend my disbelief where I don't feel like somebody who's assigned female as birth, but I'm not dissociated. I'm still present with what time it is, what day it is, who is in front of me, what's in the room around me. I haven't left. And I have created some separation between my assigned gender at birth and my experience in the moment. So, again, more to say on that. That's a really heady thing that has been in my brain for a while.
Well, yeah, and the way that we express ourselves during sex can be, I've heard a lot the term and like certain people that don't have a penis connected to their body, but that have, like, an energetic like, when they're having sex energetically are
Yeah.
penetrating somebody,
Right.
and so
Right.
that's not disassociation.
That's what I'm saying here. Yeah, we use that term really broadly, and I just want to I think that's maybe a underlying agenda of, like, this next couple episodes on the podcast is to get clear about language when we're using it, especially clinical language.
Yeah. Yes, and we can dissect that more about disassociation, and I even recognize when I said maladaptive coping, where I wanna clarify and say disassociation during sex can be a coping strategy and that it's normal to want to connect with somebody sexually, and if you're like, "Yeah, I know I disconnect during sex, but I still" or just, I disassociate or I disconnect in a certain way during sex, but I want to have this experience with this person, that's
Mhm.
totally legit.
Yeah.
That's not saying don't do that,
Mhm.
and kind of this middle ground, like you were saying, suspension of disbelief, and I'm imagining what is I don't know if there's a term for this, but the idea of, like, what if it's not, like, complete disassociation, but there's this in between, like, gray area where you're, like, slightly disconnected from your body because maybe you do have some gender dysphoria when you're engaging in sex, but, like, you find this space where you're still engaging and you're slightly not connected, but you're not totally disassociated, like, you're still aware of your surroundings, you're still giving consent, you're still participating in an active way.
This this makes me wanna have a conversation with someone who's asexual, but sexually active.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Just because I feel like what you're talking about very well may be some of those folks' experiences, and I say maybe, I don't know, that isn't my experience, and I'm curious, are any of you asexual and sexually active? Please write in, please be a guest on our podcast. I would really love to hear your experience.
I feel like this topic, we just opened up, like, 5 or 8 more topics,
You know, we
like,
did.
specific topics. So but this is a good start for the new year of,
It's
like,
the beginning of the calendar year, we gotta get it all,
yeah,
get it
we
all
got an
flowing.
overview, we got the conversation of sex going, and just like when you're having a conversation about sex with your partner, it's gonna actually probably bring up more questions.
Yep.
Hopefully, with this conversation we just had, it brings up more questions and ask us, ask your partner. And I will say, like, if we said something, yes, I am a certified sex therapist, that does not mean I know everything. And let me know if I said something that came across shitty or there are vocabulary words and there's descriptions that I could use something that is more appropriate or more helpful, more concise. Always I could be more concise. So let us
Mhm.
know. We'll
Let us
follow up.
know. We are open to conversation. That's why we're here. We're
Yeah.
not here to be experts and tell you we know everything. That's just not realistic. Be
Yes.
wary of the people who tell you they know everything. That's my advice.
Yeah. Yes.
Watch out for those ones. They're not learning anything new.
So, Melissa, it's about that time. What is your queer joy of the week?
I love my queer joy so much this week. Oh my god, it just makes me very happy. That's the point, right?
Yes,
um,
sharing is
it,
happiness.
Yeah, I will say there are some weeks where I'm like, okay, what I'm like almost pre-planning what's going to be my queer joy, which I don't think is a bad practice. Like that's
No,
great. I'm
no.
orienting towards joy every week. This was totally unexpected and spontaneous, and like that kind of queer joy makes me real happy. I was just chilling last night and probably like 6:30 around like dinner time, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe like 5:30. Around dinner time, I had kind of a busy, fun, spicy weekend and hadn't had a lot of sleep. So I took a nap and like was kind of in my groggy post nap place. And there's a knock on my door. And I'm super confused because my building's really quiet and there's never a knock on my door. And I'm like, kind of a tentative knock. So I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, hmm. So I go and there's this person at my door who is one of my neighbors and briefly like introduces themselves. I don't actually know their pronouns. I'm just going to use them for right now. And needed to borrow like a kitchen item. And I was like, "Oh, absolutely. I have one of those." And so like brought it and gave it to them and then Then they came back a couple hours later when they were done and, like, they had just made some fresh homemade applesauce, and so, like, gave me some applesauce. I, earlier in the morning, had made a whole batch of these cranberry orange scones that I could not eat all of, so I'm like, "And here are some scones." So we had this, like, pass off of, like, food, like, fresh homemade goodies that we had just made, and this person lives literally right across the hall from me. Like, if you look at my people, I can see their door. So, we got to, like, just meet each other and be like, "Hey, like, it's nice to know my neighbor," and I'm such a introvert, I mean, probably resting bitch face when I'm not, like, like, actively engaging someone. I just turn super off when I'm at home, so I know when I'm in the elevator in the hallway, I don't come across as, like, a super friendly person that I like, who would be fun to get to know. So, I don't make connections with neighbors very often for that reason, and this is, like, giving me life. I do not know that they are queer, I did not ask that, but my radar was like, "Woo," like, really having a good time. I feel like this is a wonderful queer neighborly connection. So, yeah,
I love it. Love
that's
it.
my assumption that I shouldn't make, and I did.
Connections, queer
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah.
I didn't plan one, but I am thinking back and I did have it was just like a sweet moment of the person who I continue to name. We need to come up with a name for them, but Main. They stopped by. They purposely didn't tell me that they were gonna stop by. They're just like, "Oh, are you around?" And they came by and brought me flowers, which was really cute, like always a cute surprise.
Mhm.
And just hanging at my house in the middle of the day, like they didn't have work and I took a break, and it's just always brings me so much joy to have a person in my house and get to and like flowers, how cute is that? Like,
Adorable, and the spontaneous nature of it.
yes, it was so spontaneous. Like the good queer that they are, the good mask queer person. They didn't know that I was getting my car fixed or one of my cars needed a new battery. And so they arrived right on time to drive me to the drive me to the shop and help me with the new battery. And honestly, with my back injury, they were like, "Oh my gosh, like this battery's like a little heavy. I wouldn't want you to lift this." And I'm like, heart putter putter. Oh, the mask queer person helping me. I love that's a fucking love language.
That's
Gosh.
amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today.
That was a lot. That was enough for today.
Totally.
Journal, write some notes, ponder what we've talked about.
I mean, I can talk about sex all day, every day, but I also do like how we gave the overview, and then we'll get into some more specifics in the episodes to come, along with a really exciting interview that I'm so pumped about in a couple weeks from now.
Yes.
So, other than that, some foreshadowing and check out our website. We do have some new groups coming up. We have some training. So, check it out if you're interested in engaging some group dynamics, especially during this cold, gray time of year in Portland. Group therapy is an excellent addition to therapy that you already do, or you can do it on its own. It's a good way to build connection and social skills and learn new things about yourself in the presence of others. So, other than that, I hope you all thank you for listening and have a queer and joyful week.
Thanks for listening to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy, a podcast by the Connective Therapy Collective, hosted by Keely C. Helmick and Melisa DeSegurant, with audio edited by Leigh Supapo Bernito. I'm your producer and behind-the-scenes buddy, Cardinal Marking. Intro music is by Bad Snacks. If this episode made you smile or think, tell us about it. If you hated it, tell us about that. Review us on iTunes or Spotify, or send us an email at media@connectivetherapycollective.com. Follow our Instagram at queer_relationships_queer_joy and find more resources on our website, www.connectivetherapycollective.com/queer relationships queer joy. It's a lot of links. Just check the episode description. All right. Love you. Bye.